Alright everyone, this is going to be my video about how to draw using a grid. We're going to draw this dolphin, and we're going to draw it larger on this grid. Now the key to the grid are the squares, and the fact that they are square, and they're not rectangular or misshapen in any form, and that every square is exactly the same size, exactly the same shape. This square here that we're going to draw on is much bigger than this square, but it is a square, so it's proportionally the same, right? If this were a square and that were a rectangle, this system would not work. So what I really need to do when drawing a square is look at each individual square one at a time and kind of copy it into this grid. And you really need to make sure that what you are drawing is proportional to what you see in this drawing. And the most important part is where the lines of the dolphin intersect with the lines of the grid. That's the information the grid is really telling you, is where are those lines intersecting the grid. So as a helper, I'm going to use this. Two little sheets of paper that will help me to hide everything from what I'm seeing on my dolphin, so that I can kind of help my brain a little bit by ignoring everything else. Okay, so I want to start with this square right here. So I'm going to go ahead and hide that bottom part there and that side part there. So I really want to focus on that square on the grid, right? Now this square, I'm going to actually take this off. This square here is represented by this square here. So if I were to number these, square 1, 2, 3, 4 this way, and square A, B, C, D this way, this is the top row, so that's A, and the third column, right? So that's right here. So this is A, B, C, D, and this is number 1, 2, 3, 4. You probably don't need to mark these numbers on a grid so simple, but when we get going and doing larger projects that maybe have 12 squares on a side and 18 squares on the other side, you might want those numbers on there to help you out. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just cover it, the square right here, and I'm going to look at first where the lines cross the grid. So I do have this, and I'm really going to think about where the lines cross the grid. So I want to first talk about this line here. That crosses the grid. If I think about these two lines, it's about halfway, maybe a little bit higher than halfway. If I put my pencil on there, it's slightly closer to this edge than that edge, but essentially it's halfway. So I'm going to look at this square here, think, okay, that's halfway, so we're going to be a little bit above halfway. That's where it crosses the grid. And I'm also noting the angle, like the angle it's crossing the grid at this angle, right? So I'm going to make sure that that's at the same angle. It's also touching the grid, not on this side, not on the top, but out of the bottom. So it's really tempting to ignore which side of the grid it's on and just kind of go, oh, it looks like this, so I'm going to draw it like this, and then you accidentally draw it out the side when actually it goes out the bottom or out the corner, right? So here I'm looking at that. So if I compare that to the middle, so there's the middle, and there's the corner, and it's a little bit more than halfway from there to there. So I'm going to do it at that same angle, and I'm going to make sure it crosses the grid at the same point, right? So that's where it crosses the angle. The next thing I'm going to look at is the middle. So think about where the middle of that square is. I'm going to put a little dot right in the middle. So I see what that does is I see that this fin of this dolphin, it goes above that point in the middle, comes down into this quadrant here. Think of this as being 4 quadrants of a square. Comes down into this lower left quadrant, and then it goes back out to where it goes over here. So I'm going to draw a little dot right there just so that I can get this accurate. I'm going to say, okay, it's going to go up this direction, come slightly over into this quadrant. It's going to come down here, and then it's going to come out this direction down here, just like that. Okay? And then you're going to do it each square. So I'm going to go to the next square. And I'm going to start with just the outline. I see this fin right here, but the outline will be first, and then I'm going to go in and do the rest in the inside parts, the fin and the eyes and the mouth, etc. So I see here, all I have is this little tiny line right there that goes across, right? So there's like the middle of that line. It's definitely above the middle, right? About halfway. So I'm going to say, okay, halfway from here to there, goes there. I'm going to get the angle right, just like that. Okay. Then you go on to the next square. The next square is this one, right? Square, it's going to be a B4, so it's B4. And I'm going to say, okay, where does this line enter? I know where it enters this square, where it crosses this grid line here, but where does it exit? So I'm going to think, okay, that's the middle, that's the edge, right? And it's about really halfway. So that's like a quarter of the way across the whole thing. So that's a quarter, a quarter, a quarter, a quarter. All right, so I'm going to think, okay, if that's there, that's about halfway between there and the middle. It's a nice round curve. It's going to go like that. I am noticing how this whole curve is a nice rounded curve. I want to make sure that this line also continues to keep that same nice round shape. You don't want it to start looking like this is like at different angles, even though it's crossing the grid at the correct spot. Okay. If you need to erase, that's fine. You can go ahead and erase in this using this method as much as you like. That's fine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn this into time-lapse mode and go ahead and draw the rest of the outline, and you can follow along. Now I'm going to focus on the face here for a minute. Take it out of high-speed mode because I really want to focus on these details. This is a highly detailed square. So one of the things you want to do when it's a highly detailed square, like there's a lot of detail and the grid's not helping you that much, so I'm actually turn it into a more detailed grid. I'm going to divide this square in half this way and that way. And then I'm going to divide this square in half, draw a little line this way and that way. And then I'm going to look at the individual portions of this square. So now this square is much easier to handle. So now I can just focus on this little square here. Crosses over there. All right, the nose comes into the middle of this square here. So it's going to come down there. The smile hits right about here. So the smile is going to come right in there. All right, this is going to come down into the square before it comes up like that. The eye is right there. This little curve almost is an extension of that one. So I'm going to draw that in there. There's the top of the eye. See, there's the middle of that square, so most of the eye is on this side. And then I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest. So there you have it. There is my dolphin drawn from a grid. So make sure you put your name on your paper, right? Your period, your team color, and when you're done, you can go ahead and, if there's time left in class, you can go ahead and color it and turn it in. Otherwise, we'll just leave it black and white, or you can shade it a little bit if you like. All right, go ahead and practice this, and good luck.